Well, we're being warned that climate change means these sorts of extreme temperatures will happen more regularly. Periods of intense heat do occur within natural weather patterns, but scientists say they're becoming more frequent, more intense and are lasting longer. Our climate editor Justin Roller is here. Justin.
Thanks, Fiona. So first off, as much of the country endures record temperatures, the obvious question is, why is it so hot? Well, that's simple. Southerly winds are bringing hot air up from Africa, which is helping drive the brutal heat waves Spain, Portugal and France have been enduring. Now, those same southerly winds have now brought that blistering heat here to the UK. And what makes it worse is a weather system called a heat dome. It sits like a lid on a pot, look at that, over Europe, held in place by a high pressure system. The sun heats it, but the air remains stuck within the dome, so it's pushed back down to the parched earth, raising temperatures higher and higher.
We're not ruling out further heat waves. Continental Europe is very hot at the moment, and the northern hemisphere is really hot. There's heat waves in the United States, there's heat waves in China, and it's certainly looking like this summer's going to be much warmer, and we're going to see a lot less precipitation than we usually see.
How does this compare with the past? 1976 is perhaps the UK's most famous heat wave. Temperatures hit almost 36 degrees, so lower than today, but the hot weather went on for days and days. And extreme heat is getting more common. Of the top 10 hottest days since the Victorian era, when records began, 7 are in the last 20 years. So what about the future? Well, first off, we don't yet know what this summer still has in store for us. The Met Office says it hasn't ruled out the possibility of more heat waves this year. But climate scientists say we can certainly expect more heat waves in the years to come. Here is how hot the Earth is now. Look at that. A little more than 1 degree over what it was before the industrial era began and we started burning all those fossil fuels. That pink blush shows the hottest areas. Now, this is what the world would look like at 2 degrees of warming. Now, look how much hotter much of it already is, particularly northern regions. At the moment, the world is on track to get a bit hotter than this if countries stick to the commitments they've made to cutting emissions. So what happens if they don't stick to their carbon cutting promises? Well, if the world does nothing at all, the worst case scenario, this is how things would look. Temperatures are 4 degrees above pre-industrial levels, and look how much more of the whole world is significantly hotter now. Well, all this hot weather has prompted Prince Charles to comment today. He says it shows why cutting carbon emissions is so vitally important. As I've tried to inculcate for quite some time, he says, the climate crisis really is a genuine emergency, and tackling it is utterly essential. Fiona.
Justin, thank you. Well, Europe is also experiencing the fierce heat wave with extreme temperatures and wildfires burning in countries across the continent. Blazes in Spain, Portugal and Greece have forced thousands of people to evacuate and scorched huge swathes of land. And an apocalypse of heat is how officials in France are describing the situation there, with large wildfires burning in the southwest, as our Europe correspondent Jessica Parker reports.
Into the forest and the front line of an exhausting battle. One that today we were able to witness.
Up in the woods you can see guys tackling the fires. There's a huge amount of activity down here and it is hot, it is smoky. Just look at the haze in the trees.
The smoke thickens the further in we go. The flames suddenly all too apparent.
The fire rekindles in many places. We have to be very careful with these conditions. We're in a pine forest. The vegetation is so dry here, and with the temperatures, the fire reaches the top of the trees very quickly. Flames reach up to 80 meters high.
Along here we were due to reach an evacuated campsite by the coast, but we never got there. Things were getting worse. You could see it on the ground and in the sky. Water bombers, one after the other, flying over our heads. They never stop here. They can't. But soon we, along with others, are told it's time to leave. Back on the main road, the thousands of evacuations were plain to see. Smoke means for many, it's just not safe to stay. Here at this centre, you can at least take a moment to cool down.
It was very smoky this morning. It's very bad for the lungs. I knew there were problems coming, so I prepared a grab bag. Even the medications for my dogs were ready to go.
For some, it's a matter of frantic phone calls to find a place to sleep tonight. Who knows when they'll get to go home?
It can be in a few days, it can be in a few weeks. It's very difficult now to say, but we'll try to make people come back to their house as soon as possible.
France's wildfires seen from above are an alarming sight. Winds and over 40-degree heat made for a destructive mix today. Temperatures are set to drop tomorrow, and for these men, that can't come soon enough. Jessica Parker, BBC News in Gironde.
And let's just show you these dramatic pictures from northwest Spain. Alarming scenes for passengers on board a train in Zamora this morning. Their journey came to a halt with flames on either side of the tracks. Fortunately, the train managed to continue on its way.
Well, it's not just the UK's hottest week, of course. The extreme heat has come from continental Europe, which has seen record highs and huge wildfires. Thousands of people have been evacuated because of fires in France, Spain, Portugal, Greece and Croatia, one of the worst affected areas in southwest France, where tourists have also been forced to flee. Our correspondent Ben Chapman sends this update from near Bordeaux.
For a seventh blistering day, the fires in southwest France continue to rage, forcing the evacuation of thousands of people living and visiting this popular tourist region. And just when firefighters think they've got part of it under control, it flares up again. In all, 1,700 of them have been tackling 2 huge wildfires here. The skies above the Gironde becoming a combat zone as all day aeroplanes drop their payloads of water on burning forest. This afternoon, in the resort of La Teste de Bouc, police ordered the evacuation of another 8,000 people, queuing to leave as strong winds carried smoke towards their homes. Some forced to choose the most precious possessions to save before leaving in haste.
Are you worried? Are you frightened?
Oh, I'm sad. I'm really sad. It's never mind.
When I was leaving, I can hear explosion far from the south. I think it's camping that's are burning.
You got somewhere else to stay?
Yeah, we are cooking something.
It's not quite the holiday you imagined.
We have no choice, but it's too dangerous.
Above the town, the ominous sight and smell of thick black smoke from the burning forest fills the air. Firefighters now trusted with the homes of those who'd already left.
These firefighters are the last line of defence. They've spent much of the day getting hoses ready in case this fire should start moving this way towards these inhabited areas.
It's a nightmare being repeated in neighbouring countries. In Spain, huge areas of forest were incinerated in a matter of hours. The enemy, not just the temperature, but winds gusting up to 60 miles an hour. A firefighter and a shepherd who'd ignored an evacuation order lost their lives. The passengers on this train were more fortunate, completing their journey safely despite the flames on either side of the tracks. Tonight, in the Gironde, firefighters are being praised for their exceptional work, keeping the ferocious effects of climate change from people's very doorsteps.
Ben, we really can't underestimate just how dramatic those pictures were in your report. How unusual are these fires in that part of France?
Well, standing here, even some distance from the flames, you can still smell the smoke in the air. It's not unprecedented for there to be fires in this part of France. What is unprecedented is for there to be a heat wave this intense, this early in the season and this widespread across Europe. One senior French firefighter said today that the fire's season, which is normally peak and late summer now lasts effectively 12 months of the year. They need to be ready for it all the time. It looks like today has been a record-breaking day for temperatures in France. A provisional high of 42.6 degrees Celsius recorded just a few miles down the coast from here. Temperatures are expected to drop off quite dramatically tomorrow, down to the high 20s, which will come as an enormous relief to the firefighters and to the residents here. But across Europe, the ground remains just so dry that wildfires are going to remain a threat throughout the rest of the summer.